I'm Patrick Watson. I'm an astrologer, and today we're going to be talking about the astrology of Star Wars. So, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and this isn't going to be a video like, what Star Wars character are you based on your sun sign? I'm taking a bit of a broader view on the phenomenon of Star Wars. And really, if there was one planet that kind of summed up what Star Wars is, I think it would be Neptune. Neptune is the planet of illusions and visions and ideals and imagination and unreality. And that's what movies are. I mean, movies are escapism. Movies are projections of our imagination. They're like dreams and visions kind of on a screen. They are, they aren't real, even though they kind of look real. And they're also things which people can get really addicted to and get kind of immersed in, even though they're not real. And, so Neptune's associations with fantasy and all of that seems to perfectly tie in with Star Wars. I mean, Neptune in general, the major transits of Neptune, as well as the aspects the Neptune makes to other planets, that it really tracks with the development of cinema itself as a medium. The history of cinema really matches the transits of Neptune. And that's kind of a bigger topic that I could get onto, but right now, we're just going to focus on how this applies to Star Wars, how the transits of Neptune apply to Star Wars. And it's actually very simple. I'm going to try to keep this as quick as I can. Basically, Neptune entered Sagittarius in 1970. And this is when George Lucas was making his first movie, THX 1138, which he released on March 11th, 1971. And this was at a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in Sagittarius. Now, no one cared about the movie when it came out, but it's important because obviously of who George Lucas was. And, that was his first movie. That was really the beginning of his career as a filmmaker, was when Neptune entered Sagittarius. And it was when Jupiter opposed Neptune in Sagittarius that he came out with Star Wars. So about 6 years later, Jupiter comes to oppose Neptune in Sagittarius, and this is when he, finds this big success. Another thing I forgot to mention is that in 1970, that was in 1971. I couldn't find a specific date, but that was when he started his production company, Lucasfilm. So that's important to keep in mind. Now, what's important about Neptune in Sagittarius? Well, Neptune in Sagittarius, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter rules, beneficence and wisdom, philosophy, spirituality, but it also has to do with optimism, hope. It's a very sort of hopeful sign. So what I think is interesting is that, Neptune going through Sagittarius, while you get films like Star Wars coming out, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, while you have movies like E.T., which are about, an alien who wants to go home, or Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Jupiter rules professors, academia, and adventure. And this is when you get, Indiana Jones, as a film character, who comes out, who gets created, during the Neptune and Sagittarius period. So it's, the Neptune Sagittarius period from 1970 to 1983 or so, that time period is really like the blockbuster era. That was when this whole thing kind of got started with these blockbusters, these big event movies, these big, sci-fi epic stories, these stories about, faraway travelers in a galaxy far, far away a long time ago, and where the characters use the Force. These are all very Neptunian and Sagittarian types of concepts that George Lucas just really tapped into with his Star Wars movie. So we can kind of see how Neptune's presence in the sign of Sagittarius shows us what kinds of films became popular, or what the kind of mood was for, mass media, mass entertainment like cinema. So then, Return of the Jedi came out in 1983, and that was basically at the tail end of the Neptune and Sagittarius period. So when Neptune left Sagittarius period, we had no more Star Wars content. That was kind of it. And the Neptune and Capricorn period That was from 1983 to 1997. And so there's a few things that happened in this time regarding Star Wars, but not a whole lot. Nothing on the cinematic front. Um, we have, this is when the expanded universe really took off. The fans try to keep it going. And this sort of let Lucas know that there was still a huge fan base for Star Wars. And this is when he started going back into his movies and started tinkering with them and, remastering them and adding these new CGI elements, but nothing really huge. But at the same time, he was planning for the prequels in this time. So interestingly enough, he started filming the prequel trilogy. He started filming The Phantom Menace in 1997 when Neptune ingressed into Aquarius. It was like a new era. The Neptune Sagittarius period was the original trilogy era. The Neptune and Capricorn period was this sort of barren time. And then, of course, it's ruled by Saturn, and it's in aversion to the previous signs. So it's kind of it was a more barren period for Star Wars, but it kind of got kickstarted again once it sextiled the original position of Neptune Sagittarius, and we got the prequel trilogy era. Now, Neptune and Aquarius, that was a time for movies when CGI almost went overboard. But we also had a lot of these kind of Neptune and Aquarian themes with the prequel trilogy being obviously so overly inundated with CGI, but also the story of someone falling to the dark side instead of this grand, heroic, fun, optimistic adventure with Neptune Sagittarius. We got this more like a kind of a morality play about how governments fall to corruption, and how people can be seduced by the dark side. Fear leads to anger, leads to hate, leads to suffering. This is quite an Aquarian tale in some ways, with Neptune and Aquarius. And this is also the time of the the Clone Wars TV shows and the sort of those other spin-offs situated in the prequel trilogy chronology. So then something really amazing happens when Neptune entered Pisces. Neptune entered Pisces in let's see, in 2011, I believe. Let's see. So the CEO of Disney first contacted Lucas and suggested the idea of potentially acquiring the Star Wars properties for Disney in May of 2011. So you can see throughout that month of May in 2011, Neptune is at 0 Pisces. So Disney makes this move on Star Wars when Neptune enters Pisces. Now, the sale doesn't actually become complete until October 30th, 2012. And so, as we can see here, Jupiter has actually returned back to the middle of Gemini, kind of where it was at the release of the first Star Wars movie, but I think that's just incidental. The main thing here is that Neptune is still at 0 Pisces. And so this kind of kicks off a new era, as it were, for Star Wars. This is when we got the sequel trilogy, and we're in the middle of it right now. And there's going to be a new trilogy after this one's done, and there's these new spin-off movies. We're in a new creative period for Star Wars, and this is interesting as well because Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. So this is the first time we've been in a Jupiter-ruled sign since the original blockbuster era. And I think what's interesting about this is that there's actually quite a few ways in which, Pisces is a very nostalgic sign, and nostalgia is in. I mean, we're actually quite nostalgic for, movies and shows from the era of the previous Neptune and Sagittarius period. I mean, look at Stranger Things on Netflix. That show is all about the movies from this time period, E.T. and these, John Hughes movies. Like it's, we, right now the zeitgeist, for movies is all about kind of these, recapturing these sort of older Neptune Sagittarius style movies, but kind of in their own Piscean way. And I can't say what this will mean for like what the story of this trilogy is going to be about, but I think it's just interesting to note that now that Neptune has made a square to its original position, that this is when we are seeing this new era for the Star Wars trilogies. And the other interesting thing about that too is that the sale of Lucasfilm to Disney, that that means that it was basically the Neptune square of the founding of Lucasfilm. So the Neptune square to Lucasfilm's natal Neptune was Disney's acquisition of Lucasfilm. They bought it for $4 billion. So naturally, this brings up the question of, well, what happens after this? Neptune will enter Aries in approximately 2025, and I guess all I can say about that is that we'll definitely see some sort of kind of an end, in a sense, to the Disney era of Star Wars. There'll be some sort of shift, and it'll go into an Aries ruled sign. Now, Aries is still in a trine relationship to Sagittarius, so it shouldn't be a barren period. I'd expect the Neptune Taurus period to potentially be more barren, but the like it was with the Capricorn period. But the Aries period should be interesting because I guess Aries is ruled by Mars, and I don't know. Maybe that means they like figure out how to make a real lightsaber or something. I don't know. Aries also has its exaltation lord. The Sun is the exaltation lord of Aries. So, the Aries and the Sun have a lot of these connotations of individuality, individualism. And remember, this isn't just going to mean something for Star Wars. It's going to mean something for all kinds of media. And the only thing I can think of is that perhaps there's some sort of immersive virtual reality technology that allows you to kind of be in the Star Wars universe and use the Force yourself and kind of forge your own hero's journey in your own kind of virtual world or something of that sort. So I think people will probably sign up for that, to play a bounty hunter or a Jedi in a virtual reality universe. So that's kind of what I think might be coming up by that point. But for now, we should definitely enjoy this Neptune and Pisces period. This is really awesome. Like, this will probably be looked back on as another kind of golden age for Star Wars. Given that it's another Jupiter ruled period, and we're in the thick of it, so we really have a lot more to enjoy, and I'm looking forward to it. So if you like this episode, please give it a like, give it a share it with your Star Wars fan friends. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, if you're really awesome, please consider leave me a measly buck on my Patreon. It really helps me continue to put videos out, and I really appreciate all the support that I've received so far. I'm so thankful to all of you who have helped me with my Patreon and helped me continue to make videos.